If you've been thinking about buying a home in Reno or somewhere here in Northern Nevada, be very careful because there are hidden pitfalls that could cost you thousands of dollars. And today we're going to break down the biggest mistakes we see buyers make in this market and how to avoid them. Things like flood zones, wildfire risk, shady HOAs, and some bad negotiation strategies. We've seen it all. And if you don't know these things before you make an offer, you could regret your decision big time. So let's jump in. So as always, we have Sydney Lessinger on with us. We're going to talk about some of these big pitfalls and things you've been seeing in your business. But real quick, before we go into those mistakes, real estate does not work the same way in different parts of the country. So if you're someone who might be moving here from California, just remember, we do things differently here. And if you're from a state, maybe in another part of the country that uses attorneys, we're a title and escrow state. So we're going to talk about some of these pitfalls that we do here. So we're going to guide you through the process of what happens here locally in Nevada and what some of the biggest mistakes and pitfalls that we're seeing. And the first one is talking about lenders, because we always want to start with what people can afford so that it shows them where and what parts of Reno Sparks or the surrounding areas that we're going to take them to. And what is one of the biggest mistakes that we get from a lot of people where they start off?
They won't use a local lender or don't know of a local lender to go to.
Right.
So it's definitely advisable wherever it is that you're going to move, please ask a real estate agent. Do you have somebody at a credit union, private banking, anything of that nature? It's always better to use a local lender.
And why the local lender? Because when we use these online lenders, these are typically the transactions we usually have a little more issues with. And what are some of those issues?
They don't know the area. They don't know our market. They don't understand the kind of ins and outs of how we do real estate here in Reno. And local lenders make the process so much smoother.
And they make it smoother because they know the areas. We're going to get local appraisers so that, you might be in a neighborhood or a place that does have flooding or wildfires that could cause insurance issues and things. We'll talk about those later. When we write an offer with a date to close, you want to close on time. Yes. And there's nothing worse and more expensive than all of a sudden you get delayed. Now the seller's upset. The buyer's trying to figure out what to do with their moving truck. Where am I going to stay for a few days? I got animals, and just there's way too much at stake here to be using a lender that we don't know, like, trust, and know will close on time every time. So huge one there. The second one, and to be totally honest with you, this one's a little self-serving, but it's about using a local experienced real estate agent.
Yes.
And people who watch this, I know a lot of you are watching this and you're looking at multiple different cities. You're not just thinking about moving to Northern Nevada. This goes for anywhere that you're looking.
Yes.
And why also is that so important?
You need somebody who has helped a lot of people buy and sell real estate in your area. Just because you've had a real estate license for 20 years doesn't mean you have 20 years worth of real estate experience. Our team, we do 60, 70, 80 homes a year.
We've done over 100.
Exactly. And working with somebody who is active in the industry, who is active in your market and in the surrounding markets is always key.
And again, we're one of those people where if all of a sudden we're somebody calls and wants to live in an area that we're not that well versed in,
we'll help you find an agent.
We will put you in touch with somebody there. If you're thinking about moving here and you have a home to sell where you live and you don't know a good person where you are, we know realtors all over the country, and it's just more and more and more with the way the rules are changing and things are going on. It is super critical that you have someone who knows what they're doing. It can keep you out of some areas and places that you might not want to be in as far as, just things you need to know. The next one we want to talk about, and this is one of our favorite ones because depending on the experience of a buyer, is how they like to negotiate. And everyone thinks they're an expert on what's going on in the market. And the market has been all over the board in my 30 years of doing this. But what kind of crazy negotiation things are you seeing that maybe just don't make any sense for people?
Every now and then I will get calls from investors, cash investors typically, that say, well, I want to write a lowball offer and see what happens. Sellers, at least in our area, even with investment type properties, understand the worth of what they are selling. So just kind of willy-nilly running around trying to be a cowboy in our industry and our market is not really going to serve you very well.
Well, and this goes right back to if you have a good reputable lender, a lot of these lenders can get these deals closed in 21 days. It's not like it takes a long time to do it anyway. So the benefit of having the cash, it's still great, but it's not going to dramatically get you a reduced price. A lot of it's trying to figure out what that seller's motivation is and trying to negotiate these deals and putting them together. But again, it's one of these things where we see people want to negotiate like they did on a deal that they bought 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. And the market might be completely different now. We're always going to do what we think is in your best interest. And our goal always for a seller, we always say is we want to get you the most money we can in a reasonable time frame with no headaches. And for buyers, it's the same thing. If you really find a house that you love, obviously you want to pay the lowest price you can. But at the same time, you don't want to lose that house, especially if you have a very unique property in an outlying area It's not like we can replace it. We're in a tract home neighborhood. So we'll guide you through that process. And again, if you want to write a crazy offer, we'll help you do it. But we just have to let you know that likely it's not going to, be a smart thing to do. Something else that a lot of the time buyers don't think about, and we talk about, is what the future value of a home might be. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball, but thinking about along those lines, and it's more sometimes about if I'm only going to live in Reno 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, sometimes it's more how easy might it be to resell this home, even more than what is the future value? Because knowing what the future value is kind of tough.
Yeah.
But is this something that I could get out of if I need to?
Yeah, definitely. And I think talking with your agent and looking at historical appreciation, what areas historically have appreciated potentially better over time than other areas.
Right.
I know for us, we have two pretty specific areas, the South Meadows and the Northwest. So Somerset into Collin Ranch typically seem to be appreciating really consistently and doing better than some other areas that we have.
Well, and we've also had pockets of time where high end was doing really well, then low end was doing really well, how quickly homes might sell along those lines and things like that. And so, trying to figure out that future value is tough. But again, we always tell people most of the time, if you're buying a primary residence, this should be something that you're planning on staying at least 7 to 10 years, if not longer, because otherwise, a short term, you may not win financially. Like anyone who bought a home in the last couple of years, it's been relatively flat, so it might be something difficult to get out of and get all your money back. But in the long haul, I would say you're going to win. You can go back and look at the last 75 years of real estate appreciation, and it's pretty much, I think every year but about 6 prices did go up, even if it was a small amount. So you just have to be prepared for all that and going from there. If you're thinking about moving to Northern Nevada, do me a favor. Click the link in the description below. It'll get you a copy of our free buyer's guide. It'll get you a lot of great information on things you need to know to get your journey started to Northern Nevada. Another thing is negotiation strategies and how we do things on new construction.
Yes.
Is a little bit different. And I know you've helped some people recently do some new construction.
Yeah.
What can you give people some guidance on how new construction even works?
Yes, definitely going into new home construction with an agent is more beneficial than if you don't. You have to remember the sales people in the sales office work for the builder. They represent the builder. They don't represent you. So yes, it's going to seem exciting and enticing, and they're going to say, oh, but we're listed at $450 and this. The price they just told you is the base price. That means you are going to pay for more things. You're going to maybe want upgraded flooring. Maybe you want to buy your appliances straight from the builder and have them installed before you move in. Maybe you want them to do your landscaping once you're far enough along in your contract that they'll allow you to do that. Going in with an agent is always more beneficial because the builders are out for the builder.
Well, there's lot premiums. A lot of people don't think about lot premiums. And a lot of times, because we've helped so many people buy new over the years, we can help you decide where in a neighborhood might make sense. The other thing that's a little bit different than new versus what it used to be 25 and 30 years ago, I personally have owned 3 brand new homes. So I've done the process myself and helped a lot of people do it, is they don't usually like to negotiate the price.
Right.
So they want to leave the price alone. So you might be able to get things where you can get a reduced amount on a lot premium or some reduced amounts or maybe some upgrades that they won't charge you for. Because what they don't want to do is if we hit a soft market is somebody who bought a home 3 or 6 months ago, they don't want that person to feel like the new construction house is now at a lower sales price. So they really try to leave that sales price alone. So a lot of times it's just trying to get more if you can. The other hard part with new construction is when you're getting your financing is if we don't know when the home's going to close. Some of these homes are 3, 6, 12 months out, then interest rates could jump around and it really can kind of mess around with your comfort on your payment. The other thing people have to be aware of on this, and obviously we're talking about negotiation strategies today though, is we don't always know what the property taxes or the HOA fees are going to be either. And so if you're really kind of trying to maximize your budget and want to know what your total PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and then HOA fees are going to be, a $1 million brand new house is definitely going to cost more than a $1 million 30-year-old house because those fees won't be nearly as much. So just things that people need to think about, especially with new construction now that we're talking about that, is HOA rules, HOA fees. These are things that people need to do their due diligence on. And as their representative, if we're helping them, we can do a lot of work on that. We've seen the new builder contracts. We know what a lot of these HOA rules and regulations are. Why is that important for people? Because
there could potentially be hidden rules or regulations that don't work for your lifestyle. Like there are certain HOAs in our area and in a lot of the surrounding areas that don't allow for RV parking. If you are living somewhere that you wanted to be close to Lake Tahoe access or easy access out to camping and you can't have an RV at your house, those are just little things that you want to know. Can I have guests? Where's the parking? All sorts of just different weird little rules that you definitely want to know.
And for people that are buying in an older neighborhood, a more existing HOA, you want us to look to make sure that the HOA is viable, that they're financially in a good spot. And again, sometimes the fees feel like they're too high. Sometimes the fees feel like they're too low,
Yeah.
and sometimes there's a reason for that. What you don't want to do is get hit with some sort of special assessment
Right.
because they weren't doing a good job, with the money at their place. And so, there's a lot of things you need to be paying attention to that we can definitely help you with. And again, that's part of the negotiations. If there is an assessment, a lot of times you can get that fully paid off in writing your offer and things on those lines. So another thing that people don't realize, and some huge mistakes in some areas are, we're going to kind of lump these two together, would be floods and fires.
Yes.
What can you tell people about that?
As surprising as it may be for a high desert climate, we do have flood zones and we do have areas that will flood.
Even with our whopping 7-ish inches a year of water or rain that we get.
Yes, so we do have flood zones. And if you live in the Midtown area or going through downtown, the Truckee River will sometimes flood. So we will genuinely have a flood occasionally, and the other being fires.
Right.
Brush fires do happen sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that is a little bit easier to see when you look around. Obviously, more trees means potential for more fire. As you get out into the more kind of desert, badlands types of areas, you might be a little lower risk.
So when we talk about flooding, the Truckee River obviously runs towards Sparks. So it comes from the northwest of the mountains, it runs towards Sparks. And that industrial area, the areas close to the freeway, there's definitely been neighborhoods we've seen standing water and flooding if we get a big moisture event. There's some areas in the North Valleys. There's definitely been some areas that are known that have had issues as far as that goes. Like you said, fire's a little easier to figure out if you're more towards the pine trees and more towards the west side and the hills. Nothing like you've seen in California over the last few years.
No.
But we do all know people. I think in my career, I can think of 50-ish houses and neighborhoods that have lost homes, and it seems to be more of the little onesie-twosie isolated. My best friends almost lost houses twice due to fires.
Yep.
And so again, these are just things you have to be careful with because it will affect your insurance.
Yep.
It will affect, and with all the crazy insurance stuff that's going on, this is something, again, where a lot of times now, at some point, I think it's going to be part of our contracts where you're going to see, hey, I get to talk to my insurance agent and find out what is the insurance cost going to be on this house. Because again, it's something where if homes have had claims filed against it and other issues,
Yep.
it's something you need to be careful in thinking about. So for people that are thinking about moving to Northern Nevada, we don't want you to have to worry about all these things. This is what we get hired to do. This is what we're thinking about. We want you thinking about what fits in your budget, what area do you want to be, and what fits your lifestyle and those kind of things. So any other big mistakes that you've been seeing lately or recently that people have done that you're like, oh my God, we don't want to do that?
Sometimes they think too narrowly when they first come here.
Right.
Take Reno in for all that it is. Let's talk about everything that we just mentioned and see which areas potentially could be more beneficial.
I totally agree with all that. So with all that being said, as always, if you're watching our videos and you're thinking about moving to Northern Nevada as one of the options of maybe multiple cities, reach out to us, ask the questions, send us your information. We are happy to have those conversations. And we're not pressure sales. We know it's a huge deal if you're trying to relocate from another place. And again, it seems like the majority of the people that do reach out to us about our videos live in other areas. And so we just want to get you the information. We are not going to worry about if you're doing something right away or not. We just want you to get what you need so that you'll know how to best navigate all the things in Northern Nevada so you won't make mistakes and overpay for something or do something silly and be in an area that you don't want to be in. So thanks for coming on as always.
Thank you.
If you're thinking about moving to Northern Nevada, do me a favor. Check out this video we did right here about the top 20 reasons why you'll love living here.